History is often viewed as a straight line, a relentless march forward where yesterday leads into today, and today bleeds into tomorrow. We are taught that progress is inevitable, that the story of a nation is one of perpetual growth, an endless expansion of liberty, prosperity, and power. But what if history is not a line at all? What if it is a cycle? What if it is a circle that returns to its starting point, not because of fate, but because of the immutable nature of human beings? Today, we are not here to recount the battles of the Revolution or the industrial triumphs of the 20th century. We are here to discuss something far more urgent, far more solemn. We are here to discuss the closing of a book. We are here to ask the question that whispers in the back of every mind. Is this the final chapter? Is this the last history of America? To understand where we are, we must first understand the weight of where we have been. The story of America was never just a story of land and borders. It was an experiment in the very possibilities of human nature. It was the audacious idea that a government could be derived not from the divine right of kings, but from the consent of the governed. For centuries, that experiment defied the odds. It turned a wilderness into a superpower. It turned a collection of disparate colonies into a beacon that drew the tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free. But every beacon, no matter how bright, eventually runs out of fuel. Every empire, no matter how virtuous it believes itself to be, eventually encounters the limits of its power. We have been taught that America is exceptional, and perhaps it was, but exceptionalism is not a suit of armor against the laws of history. Gravity applies to nations just as it applies to men. What goes up must eventually stabilize, and if it cannot stabilize, it must come down. Consider the trajectory of the American century. It began in the rubble of the Second World War, when the world lay broken and America stood as the only giant left standing. It was a time of unparalleled unity, a time when the enemy was visible and the goal was clear. But that unity was not destined to last. The very freedom that defined the American experiment also contained the seeds of its own potential destruction. Freedom requires responsibility. It requires a shared commitment to the truth. And as the decades rolled on, that commitment began to erode. We did not fall because of an invasion from the outside. We did not crumble because a foreign army marched on our capital. The decay came from within, slowly, quietly, like a termite in the foundation of a great house. It happened in the silence of living rooms where screens replaced conversations, in the corridors of power where compromise became a dirty word, and in the hearts of a people who stopped seeing their neighbors as countrymen and started seeing them as enemies. We are living in a time that historians will look back upon with a mix of pity and confusion. They will ask how the richest, most technologically advanced society in the history of the world allowed itself to become so fractured. They will wonder why, at the height of our power, we lost the ability to agree on what reality actually is. When a civilization loses its shared truth, it loses its soul. And that is the tragedy we are witnessing. We are witnessing the fragmentation of the American mind. The narratives that once bound us together, the American dream, the melting pot, the idea that hard work yields reward, have been replaced by cynicism, resentment, and a desperate clawing for power. The last history of America is not being written by politicians or generals. It is being written by a culture that has forgotten how to listen. Look closely at the symptoms of this decline. It is not just the shouting matches on television or the gridlock in the legislature. It is deeper than that. It is a loss of institutional faith. When the people no longer believe that the system is fair, the system loses its legitimacy. A government can rule by force, yes, but it cannot endure by force alone. It endures because the people believe in it, and today that belief is evaporating. We see it in the polarization that splits families apart at the dinner table. We see it in the economic disparity that creates a canyon between the ultra-wealthy and the struggling working class. We see it in the desperation that grips our communities, leading to the epidemics of addiction and despair that stain our landscape. These are not random events, they are interconnected fractures in the tectonic plates of our society. The pressure is building and the tremors are getting stronger. But let us be clear about what we mean by the end. The end of a nation does not always mean a violent apocalypse or a sudden silence. Sometimes the end is a slow fade. Sometimes it is a transition into something unrecognizable. The last history of America may not be a story of bombs falling from the sky. It may be the story of a country that simply ceases to function as a cohesive unit. It may be the story of a great power that becomes a hollow shell, retaining the trappings of its past glory while the substance rots away from the inside. This is the path we are treading. We are obsessing over the decorations on the house while the foundation is crumbling. We are arguing about the arrangement of the deck chairs on the Titanic, refusing to acknowledge the water rising around our ankles. The complexity of our modern world has outpaced our ability to manage it. The systems we built in the mid-20th century are buckling under the weight of the 21st. The global order that America established is unraveling. New powers are rising in the East, challenging the dominance that we have taken for granted for 70 years. This is the natural cycle of history. No one stays on top forever, but the danger for America is not that it might become a second-rate power. The danger is that it is not prepared for that reality. The American psyche is not built for decline. It is built for triumph. And when the triumph stops, the identity crisis begins. Who are we if we are not the greatest? What is our purpose if we are not the policemen of the world? If we cannot answer these questions, the void will be filled by demagogues and charlatans who promise to return us to a past that no longer exists. This nostalgia for a golden age is a powerful drug, but it is also a poison. It prevents us from facing the reality of our present. We cannot write the next chapter if we are stuck rereading the old ones. The last history will be defined by our inability to adapt. The climate is changing, presenting existential threats to our coastlines and our agriculture. The economy is shifting towards automation and artificial intelligence, threatening to render millions of jobs obsolete. In the face of these tidal waves, our response has been paralysis. We are locked in a tribal combat that renders us incapable of the collective action needed to solve existential problems. While Rome burns, we are fiddling with our phones, trapped in echo chambers that reinforce our worst prejudices. Let us delve deeper into the mechanism of this unraveling. A republic survives only as long as its institutions are respected. The judiciary, the press, the intelligence community, the electoral process. These are the pillars of the temple. If you shake one pillar, the temple stands. If you shake them, the roof collapses. We have spent the last few decades taking sledgehammers to these pillars in the name of partisan victory. Short-term political gain has been prioritized over long-term national survival. Each side blames the other, convinced of their own righteousness, but the outcome is the same. The temple is wobbling. The trust that is required for a society to function, a trust that the person on the other side of the aisle is not a monster, but a fellow American who wants the best for the country, has been shattered. Without trust, there is no society. There is only a crowd of individuals occupying the same geographic space, waiting for the other to strike. This brings us to the precipice. The final chapter is not a predetermined destiny. It is a choice we are making every single day. History is not a movie that we are watching passively. We are the actors. We are the writers. And at this moment, the script we are writing is a tragedy. But it does not have to be. The curiosity that hangs over this narrative is the question of the turning point. When does the slide reverse? When does the courage return? Or is it too late? Are we past the point of no return? The laws of physics suggest that momentum carries you forward until an opposing force acts upon you. Currently, the momentum is toward dissolution. The opposing force, reason, unity, courage, has yet to materialize. It is absent from our discourse. It is missing from our leadership. Consider the economic reality of the last history. The prosperity that defined the post-war American dream was built on a foundation that is no longer solid. A single income could support a family. A high school diploma could guarantee a stable career. Those days are gone, replaced by the gig economy, precarious employment, and a cost of living that outpaces wages. The social contract has been broken. The elites, isolated in their enclaves of wealth and power, have failed to notice the suffering of the masses. They have failed to see that a country cannot survive when half the population feels left behind.